It's the mid-1960s, and believe it or not, Chrysler wanted to offer a different type of inline six-cylinder to go in their truck line. This engine was called the D engine. It was going to replace the slant six in their truck lines, but the US gave up on the design after prototypes were made. Chrysler Australia needed a new six-cylinder, which they wanted to use in the Chrysler Valiant that they produced in the Australian market. Chrysler Australia was intrigued about the D engine, so Chrysler USA would send the prototypes to Australia, where they would develop the engine into something truly special. And it's an absolute bummer that we did not get this here in the States. The block was cast iron, monoblock design where the cylinders and crankcase are all cast as one single block. This would be Chrysler's first thin wall cast iron engine outside the LA V8. The thinner walls made the engine lighter. The engine used an overhead valve arrangement, 2 valves per cylinder, intake and exhaust, but the valves are angled 18 degrees apart, and they are placed along the crankshaft axis. The intake valve could be as large as 1.96 inches. Valves open away from the cylinder wall, resulting in less shrouding of the valves. The valves are also slightly inclined. The cylinder head is not a cross-flow design, so the intake and exhaust ports are on the same side. The combustion chamber was about 35% of the top of the globe, creating low hemispherical shaped combustion chamber. Even though the combustion chamber was a semi-Hemi technically, that didn't stop Chrysler from marketing it as a Hemi. Push rods activated the valves overhead. Valve lifters were hydraulic. Rocker arms are mounted on individual studs, which was an improvement over the earlier Chrysler Hemi V8, which had 2 separate rocker shafts. The crankshaft is supported by 7 main bearings, giving it great structural rigidity as well as mitigating flex. Introduced in 1970, 245 cubic inch displacement Hemi inline 6, 4 liters. It was good for anywhere between 111 to 165 horsepower at 4,600 RPM. It could make up to 235 pound-feet or 318 newton meters at 1,800 RPM with a bore of 3.76 inches and a stroke of 3.68 inches. Compression could be anywhere between 7.6 to 9.5 to 1. Years this engine was used, 1970 through 1975. A low compression version came in about 1977, and it was produced until about 1981. 1971 would see the release of the 2 remaining variants, a high-performance model and an economy model. Starting with the economy model, bore was decreased to 3.52 inches, bringing overall displacement to 215 cubic inch displacement Hemi inline 6, 3.5 liters. It's good for 139 horsepower at 4,400 RPM. 199 pound-feet or 270 newton meters around 1,800 RPM with a bore of 3.5 inches and a stroke of 3.68 inches. Compression was 8 to 1. In years, this engine was used 1971 through 1981, and it could be found in the Chrysler VIP, Chrysler by Chrysler, Valiant, and other cars offered by Chrysler Australia. 1971 also saw the release of the largest displacement inline Hemi Chrysler 6, which was the 265 cubic inch displacement, 4.3 liters. It was good for anywhere between 146 all the way up to 302 horsepower at 4,600 or 5,600 RPM with the 302 figure, up to 320 pound-feet or 434 newton meters around 4,400 RPM with a bore of 3.91 inches and a stroke of 3.68 inches. Compression could be anywhere from 9.5 to 10 to 1. This engine was used between the years of 1971 through 1978. It also could be had as a high-performance or 6-pack version, which was available from 1971 through 1973. It's important to note that the 6-pack performance version had 4 different variants of block casting: E37, E38, E48, and E49. They are a totally different casting than the lesser 265 block. Each of the various castings had something different to offer. For example, the E38 blocks had deeper main bearing caps and longer bolts with hardened washers. The E49 casting was the holy grail, as Dennis Collins would say. It had different piston to bore specs as well as piston clearances. It used intermediate piston rings. It also had the 3 Weber side draft carburetors, and in my opinion, nothing looks more sexy than when you open the hood and you see an inline 6 with that triple Weber side draft setup. The E49 Charger was one of the quickest accelerating cars down under, doing 0 to 60 in 6 seconds, which is impressive for anything, especially a car with an inline 6 during this era. This engine was awesome. It's a mystical unicorn here in the States. So why did Chrysler get rid of it? Well, it turns out Chrysler Australia would close in 1980 or 1981, depending on what source you read. Chrysler would partner with Mitsubishi to build the Valiant models, but they still had Chrysler badging. When Chrysler folded, the Hemi 6 went with them. Chrysler did return to the Australian car market, but it wasn't until 1994. But as they say, that is another story for another day. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. 2 scenarios today. In the first scenario, would you rather have a 1975 Chrysler Valiant or 1971 Chrysler Valiant wagon or 1981 Chrysler Valiant? I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free to pause the video. On to the second scenario. 1971 Chrysler by Chrysler. And man, the Australians, they have some really weird names for these cars. Or 1970 Chrysler VIP or 1976 Chrysler Valiant. Once again, going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free to pause the video. Now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to give both the name of the band, song title, and the song lyric that comes next will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. Have this wish I wish tonight. So just to reiterate, I need the name of the band and or artist, song title, and whatever lyric comes next or the line that comes next. First person to have all 3 will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this one. This one's a little bit different. We don't usually get into engines that we didn't really get here, but this is such a cool engine. I just really wanted to cover it. So yeah, I've never seen any of the cars in person on the Would You Rather. They had some really interesting concepts. If you guys have any stories pertaining to the Australian Chrysler product, please feel free, share them in the comment section below. Thanks again for everything that you guys bring, and until next time, toodaloo!